So here we are. The weekend is upon us. I mean, for the most part. It's a Friday. As I've gotten older, and I'd like to know if anybody else feels this way. This might be just like a late life development in Quarryville, but for some reason, Eddie Garrison, let me ask you this. What is your favorite day of the week?
I don't know. Any day that I get to work with myself, which is every day, so.
Okay.
Should be your favorite day of the week.
What's your least favorite day of the week?
Oh, Sunday.
Yeah, because you just kind of know that.
At least right now it's Sunday.
What, does that change during football season?
Yeah.
Which this is the final weekend before there is football in some way, shape, or form, right?
Training camp starts in 4 days, Jake.
My favorite day of the week has become...
Actually, 5. They report in 4.
I'd like to know if anybody finds this unusual. As I've gotten older now, my favorite day of the week is Thursday.
Really?
I kind of treat Thursday evening, we usually try to go to dinner because it's the precursor. You know the weekend is upon you. And so I love Thursday night because Fridays are fun. Obviously, I love Fridays, but I don't know, I like knowing that it's upon you. So Thursday's my favorite night. But here we are on a Friday, so the weekend's I'm just declaring because Thursday night, last night, was my night, and so the weekend's upon us, right? But we still have work to do, and we still have a show to do, and everybody else does as well. Have to continue their work. Good afternoon to you on this Friday. I'm Jake Query, Eddie Garrison, the voice you just heard. It is Query and Company here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Now, the weekend being upon us means that WNBA All-Star Weekend is here. And if you have not been downtown yet, it's pretty electric because not only do you have the WNBA All-Star Game in town, and they were putting up, Mark Dykton mentioned it yesterday as you guys were filling in for John. I went and walked around Monument Circle last night, and he was right. I mean, it's cool down there. There's a very cool on the south side of Monument Circle, right on Meridian. There is a very cool WNBA All-Star Game sign that is perfect with the monument in the background. I mean, it's a perfect landscape-looking photo, and there were tons of people taking pictures of that. They had goals being set up. The decor is definitely up and around and about to show that the All-Star Game is here. And last night, I was part of, and it was a privilege to be able to be part of this, the Heart and Hustle Awards, which recognized Franciscan Health and, in particular, the place of women in sports and the importance of women in sports, not only in Indianapolis, but nationally speaking. Julie Rolash, who is the commissioner of the Horizon League, was there and was honored. All 3 of Jim Irsay's daughters were honored for the Indianapolis Colts. Lara Overton, herself very capable, of course, and a fine representation of females in sports, accepted an award on behalf of the Irsay daughters. And then as well, Katie Douglas was honored and got a congressional proclamation, for that matter, for her contribution to Indiana sports. And one of the speeches that was given, which I thought was very poignant and something that I had maybe not really thought about, was for Samson Livingston gave this speech, and he made a very good point. And that is that for most of us that are fans of sports, whether you are of my age bracket and you grew up, I grew up watching from a basketball standpoint. I was an IU basketball fan. I mean, Steve Alford was massive. Before that, I remember watching Isaiah Thomas, different players. And interestingly enough, as a basketball player, when I was certainly in late adolescence, I wanted to become better with my left hand in basketball. And so I did nothing for an entire season. This was actually when I was a sophomore in high school. I did nothing for my entire sophomore and junior years of high school but watch left-handed players and emulate them in the driveway. I began moving more to my left. I began trying to brush my teeth and do things with my left hand. And I began shooting with my left hand. Not as my primary shot, but I began emulating what I had seen from left-handed players. And all of a sudden I was able to, and I was not a great basketball player, I'm not saying that, but I was able to go to my left or to my right. I was able to shoot. If my right was taken away, I was able to shoot with my left hand because I spent a year or two doing nothing but studying and watching left-handed athletes. The point to what I'm saying here is this. I think we as men, and I know that there are women listening to the show, but we as men and women as well growing up, when it came to athletics, we were able to do what we saw. We were able to emulate those that were there before us. And I think we, as men, take for granted that for so many young girls, we wanted them to be fans of sports. We wanted them to enjoy games with us and watch games and get excited about it and go to a football game on Saturday or whatever else. But we were asking them to enjoy and embrace something with which they themselves did not have necessarily directly that identifier and that relationship of and that correlation of seeing what they wanted to be. When I would watch left-handed players, I was seeing what I wanted to be. And young girls for so long, when they would watch sports, were not able to see what they wanted to be because there were not professional basketball players. There were college players, yes, but even that, everyone knew there was a ceiling. So I think the importance of the WNBA and the All-Star Weekend and that here, if you are a father, you are an uncle, you are a coach or a mentor or a neighbor or whatever it may be for young female athletes, I think it's important to stop and recognize the importance and the significance of what is here this weekend, because it does offer, for the first time for a lot of young girls, the opportunity to see what it is they would like to be. And so I think we should celebrate that this weekend. We did exactly that last night. It was a cool event, and it was a lot of fun. But the All-Star game being upon us here in Indianapolis is cool. It's fun. It's exciting. You combine that with, of course, this is also the weekend of the always huge event of the summer celebration of Indiana Black Expo. So there's a lot of good energy going on downtown, and it was very cool to be down for that last night. Now, with the schedule of events taking place for the WNBA All-Star Game, the game itself is tomorrow night, correct, Eddie?
That is correct.
And what we know now is that Caitlin Clark will not be participating over the course of the weekend. That announcement coming just about 23 hours ago from Caitlin Clark as she continues to nurse that injury on her right leg. But that is not to say the Fever are not represented. Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, both will be in the All-Star Game. And in addition to that, Caitlin Clark, who was scheduled to be in tonight's three-point shootout, Eddie, because Caitlin Clark is not going to be in it, that is not to say that the Indiana Fever, of which you are the pre- and post-game host, that is not to say that they are not represented in tonight's Skills Challenge.
That is correct. Lexi Hull will replace Caitlin Clark in the three-point contest, so there is still Fever representation.
So the Fever will, with Lexi Hull, be there tonight doing that. So a lot going on and a lot to discuss over the course of today. Also, as Eddie had mentioned, we are now on the cusp. We are within the week. We turn one last weekend before we get to Colts camp, training camp, getting underway, Grand Park. We're going to be there aplenty, broadcasting from Grand Park in Westfield, trying to bring you player interviews and get you up to speed on what is going on with the Colts. And the big storyline with that, the big storyline for the Colts might actually be the big storyline that was not. And by that I mean, I think there was anticipation, there was expectation to an extent that this was going to be, again, the talking point of Anthony Richardson is dinged up or Anthony Richardson's shoulder is sore, whatever it may be. And Daniel Jones was going to be taking the starting reps throughout the course of training camp. Yesterday, Stephen Holder had the report that the Colts have said that the time that Anthony Richardson rested, the time that he was off after and I always forget whether we call it mini camp or OTAs or whatever the language is, but the last time that they were doing workouts on West 56th, when Richardson started to pump the brakes a little bit because that shoulder started to speak up and it was sore. And the thing to me that is still, I will say, for lack of a better phrase, troublesome, bothersome, foreshadowing is this. When Anthony Richardson was shelved and had surgery on his shoulder, and yes, in this market, in this town, we have a PTSD when you talk about shoulder surgeries and subluxation, and you start getting into the vernacular of the ball of the shoulder and the netting around it and the compromise of that netting. We all go back to Andrew Luck. And yes, it was an ankle or lower leg thing that did in Andrew Luck, but the shoulder was a major talking point for a long time with him. So when Richardson initially had that injury and had that irritation of the shoulder, at that time it was, look, we are nipping this in the bud right now. We are putting a stop to this right now. Before the water starts crashing through the dam, we are going to be Clark Griswold with a piece of bubble gum, and we are stopping it right now. And we are going to shelf him. He is going to have surgery. And yes, this is going to be a nuisance to his young player development. But the good news is, if we do this now, we assume it's going to be a one procedure fix-all thing that nips it in the bud, and we should be good to go. And yes, he played after that, but then to have him go out, go through procedure, go through rep, and in the first real test of the offseason, then immediately say, Anthony Richardson is experiencing soreness in that shoulder, and you're like, wait a minute, but I thought surgery was supposed to take care of that. Now, they can say it's in a different area. It may be. But now it appears as though whatever rest was put on Richardson, whatever ice and whatever shelf his shoulder was put, paid off, because the anticipation is that he is locked in, feeling good, and ready to go, which is great news. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that facetiously or sarcastically at all. But the one thing that gives me pause is, okay, but is this what it's going to be from here on out? Is it always going to be 3 steps forward, a step back, 2 steps forward, a step back, 4 steps forward, and consistent having to set back and or step back, and then because of setback, and rest that shoulder? I go back to, and I think in every line of work that we're in every aspect of life that we're in, so much of who we are and what we are is rooted in how we were built. And Anthony Richardson, who I don't know Anthony Richardson well, but I have no reason to believe anything other than he's a good guy. And he's a wonderful athletic talent, no question. And I think he's a guy whose heart and head are rooted in absolutely, genuinely positive places. But as I've mentioned before, a lot, I realize, so much of who we are and what we are is rooted in how we were built. And it was about a year ago, and I don't remember who it was that listens to this show that pointed this out to me, but I want to thank them for doing so. The show that I watched, which I think what happened, I don't know this, but I'm pretty sure this is the case, Eddie. I think, because you hear this a lot where you see, like Tyrese Halliburton right now he had a film crew following him all through the playoffs, right?
He has one apparently following him through this recovery journey, too, from his Achilles.
And this is all part of, everybody always says, well, this is a show for Netflix, a show for Netflix, a show for Netflix. Oftentimes what it is a show that they're hoping to get to Netflix. Now, this, in Halliburton's case, it may be that Netflix has already signed on, and he's a pretty big star. But a lot of times you see shows that are being developed or being recorded or being produced and put together, or documentaries that may never see the light of day in the place where they are originally. Kind of like if you watch Seinfeld, and I know I'm going with a 30-year dated reference here, but Seinfeld's still on every single night. In the show Seinfeld, Jerry and George write a pilot for NBC that they are doing a show and they are trying to get it on NBC. And then NBC runs one pilot of it and decides against doing it. So then they go and they try to sell it to the Japanese television network just to get it anywhere that they can get it. And I think a lot of these shows and documentaries are put together and literally gift-wrapped and bow-tied and everything else in hopes that they can get to Netflix, and then Netflix doesn't pick it up, and so they end up elsewhere. And I think that's what happened with this show about Anthony Richardson. But when Anthony Richardson was a senior in high school, there was a documentary done to follow 3 high school, high-profile quarterback recruits. Bryce Young in Southern California is one of them. There was a young man in Texas that ended up going to Iowa and played for like 4 schools in 4 years. That's one of them. And Anthony Richardson is the other. And when they show Anthony Richardson in high school, he is a man amongst boys. He is far taller than everybody in his huddle. He is far more physically gifted than everybody on his roster. He spends the majority of his non-school time in a almost paternal role to his younger brother, who, when he was a senior in high school, his little brother was like 8 or 9 years old. And he's a very humble and likable, almost underdog, shy guy. And his coaching staff at his high school come off as very good, well-intended, right place, right time young men that are trying to guide and mold high school players in, I wouldn't say, it's disingenuous to say in a rough background, but a lower socioeconomic background than a lot of other schools that you see. For example, Bryce Young's. Bryce Young is playing at basically football royalty, the Newcastle or the Marion or the Muncie Central of football in California, and he's got a quarterback's coach and somebody working on his mechanics and videographer and all of it, right? He's got all the bells and whistles, and he's got coach, all of it you get at the college level. Anthony Richardson plays at a high school where when there's lightning, they cancel practice for the day because they have nowhere indoors to go. They have no gym to go to. And when he is playing, he is so much more physically gifted than everybody else that he's playing against that the mechanics and the daily routine nuance of what it takes at the Division I or NFL level is not necessarily ingrained in him because it's completely foreign to the environment in which he's playing, including to his coaching staff and everything else. And so that's the thing. When you look now at Richardson at the NFL level, so much of, if you want to keep the shoulder healthy, et cetera, so much of that is rooted in the proper mechanics, the proper day-to-day, and you become a product of what you are built to be. And to a great extent, I don't know that everything that goes into being an NFL quarterback, that it is naturally ingrained. Now, that's not to say he can't learn it. He's a young player. But I don't know that it was naturally ingrained in him at a young age. And I'm the first to admit, one of the things about this job to me that is a challenge, really the only challenge of this job, is when I go out in public or on social media or whatever else, and I'm not pretending by any stretch of the imagination that when I go out that, like, every third person recognizes me. I mean, that's ridiculous to think. But if it comes up in conversation and someone happens to know of the radio show or whatever else, oftentimes people will critique something that I said that they didn't agree with, or they thought that I didn't do enough research on it, or that I was coming from an area or an angle that showed a naivete, or whatever those things are. And those critiques are interesting to me because my job to a great extent is to do nothing for 3 hours a day but to critique the job of other people, to critique Chris Ballard, to critique Anthony Richardson. And so in that capacity, it's only fair that I should be open to the criticism that comes from other places of me and of the job that we do and of this show, because that's kind of what our job is based in doing. So turnabout is fair play. And I'd like to say that I handled that okay, or that I'm okay with that, but I haven't always been. And it took a very long time, probably for me longer than most, to have the growth process and the maturation to be able to handle that aspect of it. Even though I was afforded and given those things as a young person, and those building blocks were there for me, it was not until much later in my life that I decided to exercise those things with which I was afforded. And in Anthony Richardson's case, you have the kind of the double whammy of, I don't know that he necessarily has figured out all that is afforded to him as an NFL quarterback, but he doesn't have those building blocks. So who am I to sit here and say he should have figured that out by now, when I had those building blocks, and at 23 or 24, I probably hadn't figured out everything that allowed me the professionalism to do what I do now. I probably didn't learn that until I was 30, 35. In the NFL, you don't have time for that. You got to figure it out before then. But I just think that this year, now that his shoulder is healthy, now that it is pain-free, that's great, and that's good news, and that beats the alternative without question. But the rest of it now is going to be the question mark, and that is he or has he figured out the things that he has to do on the daily beyond just being in the building? You know, so many quarterbacks have told me, for example, look, when you are the quarterback of an NFL team, that means that you are the first in and the last to leave, not by example, but by necessity, because you have a greater responsibility, a greater workload, and a larger learning curve than any other position in the sport, because you've got to oversee everything. And I don't know that he necessarily had grasped that, but I'm curious to see if, in fact, this is a both players starting at the exact same spot quarterback competition, then I think there is some area of learning curve that he's going to have to undertake. And I'm very curious when we get to Grand Park. And some of this you can only see through observation, which is why I'm glad that we're going to be out there and get the chance to see some of this. But watching the body language of the interaction between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, you know, is this in a true quarterback we've seen quarterback competition before where you get two guys that, even though they are competing for a starting spot, they're working alongside one another very closely. And they're pushing one another, but there's a respect level there within. They're tight and they're close, and that's a good thing because it allows the team to carry on without missing a beat if there is some a reason why one of them needs to go in and play. And you go back and forth. We've seen other times where the starter and the backup, sometimes it's the backup's job to support the starter and vice versa. If they're not on the same page, then you got a problem. Because then all of a sudden, within the room itself, that also, what did Pat Knight say to us, Eddie, when it comes to basketball? You can have one problem, I'm paraphrasing, you can have one problem guy, but if you get two of them, they breed. And you certainly don't want two of them coming from within the same room. Big show lined up for you today because we have things to give away as well. We still have tickets to give away, correct?
Yeah, multiple tickets to give away, Jake. We've got the Offspring tickets to give away with Jimmy Eat World and the final pair of courtside seats for the TBT.
The TBT is going to be cool. And I thought it's funny because the TBT original promo posters they did for it had Gordon Hayward in them. He's not going to be there, but a lot of the guys he played with, Shelvin Mack, for example, one of those that's going to be playing in the TBT. But we will give those away over the course of the show today. When we come back, one area of the Pacers that I think is a real positive that's taken place in the last week and something to look forward towards with an eyebrow raised. And it's not necessarily the guy we talked about yesterday. I'll explain next. You like to party like a rock star, Eddie? Is that your deal there?
Well, you're talking about you tease the Pacers, them being in Vegas, and I feel like when you're in Vegas, you're partying like a rock star. So,
doesn't everybody go to Vegas? And let me ask you this before we get to the Pacers, since we're coming off Summer League. You've been to Vegas how many times, Eddie?
3 times. Once over the age of 21.
Okay. You can always tell a Vegas rookie. What's the easiest way to tell? If somebody tells you they're getting ready to go to Vegas, they're like, yeah, I'm going to Las Vegas. What's the number one thing when you ask them their plans that tell you that it's the first time that they've ever been to Vegas?
Ooh, that's a good question.
There's always one telltale.
You're going to go win some money.
Well, yeah, if they think that, they're totally wrong. To me, there's a very clear line in the sand on this. And that is if they tell you the number of days that they plan on being there. Because there's a very clear, is there not, maximum. Vegas, to me, Vegas is like Jägermeister. Like the second that you've had too much, there's no going back, right? Like once you get to a certain point, you're like, I'm good. So what would you say is the maximum, Eddie, in terms of the number of days that you would want to be in Vegas?
Probably 4. And that may be stretching it.
Yeah, I'd say 3, right?
Yeah.
I mean, every time that I've ever gone to Las Vegas, and I've had a good time every time I've gone to Vegas. The last time I went actually was probably the best time I've been to Vegas. But literally every single time. Now, last time I went for a concert. So I wasn't there for like the whole casino, stay out late, party type setting. But every time I've been, when I am sitting there waiting for my plane at the gate to go home, and there's people coming off of the plane and everybody's in that, oh my gosh, I'm in Vegas, I'm so excited mood, all I can think to myself is you could not pay me to go and hang with these people for 3 more days. It's sensory overload times 1,000, right? The sounds, all of it. It's fabulous. But after 3 days, you're like, okay, I'm good. That said, as the Pacers just got back from or wrapping up, I guess, Summer League in Las Vegas, the guy that I think is really intriguing, there are 2. Now, Talon Peter, I think, you have an interest in him because he's basically Ben Shepherd. There are so many similarities to Ben Shepherd, like a lot of them. Kind of funny-looking hair, right? Curlier hair. Coming from a small, like when I think of Bellarmine and Liberty, for whatever reason, in my mind, I think of them as kind of the same category. I don't even know if they're in the same. Are they both in the Ohio Valley? I'm not sure if they're in the same, maybe neither one is, but I think of them as like parallel type programs and schools, but also similar playing style.
Bellarmine's in the A-Sun.
Okay. What's Liberty in?
They are in, I do not know.
I think they might be Ohio Valley, but my buddy Greg Simmons would know that. He knows every school like off the top of his head.
Conference USA.
Okay. But either way, I think that Peter has, and maybe it's also the fact that, Ben Shepherd was brought in a class that had 2 players coming in that both made the roster, and I think that Talon Peter and as well Cam Jones are both going to make the roster. But Peter, to me, is intriguing because he can shoot, as could Ben Shepherd, but he's there almost more just for situational defense and overall court presence. And being, a more mature player, a guy that's coming in that has plenty of college experience under his belt, a little bit of hunger about him, and just an overall maturity. And Ben Shepherd is absolutely that guy. And Shepherd, when they were rookies, I think that Ben Shepherd, and a lot of it was just situational, but Ben Shepherd was able to get minutes in rotation for the Pacers before Jarris Walker. I don't mean before Jarris Walker like they were playing the same position. I mean at an earlier date than did Jarris Walker.
Yeah.
And Shepherd, from the get-go, even though he wasn't scoring a lot, was getting a lot of significant minutes in rotation and giving them really quality minutes. Minutes that didn't – he might not have been out there doing anything that jumped off the page to you, but he was not hurting them and was very, I think, a lot of times just in the right spot defensively. And then, of course, if the ball rotated over and he had an open look, he could knock down a three, knock down a shot for you. And I think that's how you look at Talon Peter. You look at those things and you say, okay, so that looks like a spot where he can be that kind of a player. And maybe that's even going to be more important now because maybe Shepherd gets even more minutes with Halliburton being out and people kind of shifting around. And so he slides into that, 8 to 12-minute role. That's probably pretty aggressive for a rookie, but, we'll see. But the guy that I think is really intriguing, and it's not overly surprising that I would say this because of where he was selected and the kind of season that he had, but also a veteran college player. But the thing about Cam Jones is I think that he has a versatile skill set, but he's 6'5", so he's a bigger player. Let me take that back. 6'5" is not huge in the NBA, don't get me wrong. But it's not like he's a 6'2" or 6'3" guy if he's got to handle the point, for example. 6'5" is adequate in that regard. But I think that he has kind of combo guard capability. And for a guy that is going to be the third spot at his position, I think he's going to have plenty of opportunity to work himself into rotation, and it's only going to benefit them that then when Halliburton in 18 months or so is back, and hopefully is back to the level that they anticipate him being back, that now you just have, again, total strength in one and maybe two guys that can give you good minutes. And then you have Johnny Furphy, who we will see if this is the coming out party for Johnny Furphy in Summer League that gets him and cracks him into rotation from a confidence standpoint and allows him. They love his wing defense. I do know that. But he showed some aggression with his ability to get to the rim and then occasionally hit from the outside as well. And I know that Rick Carlisle really likes how quickly he can release the basketball, which is coveted in that fast-paced offense that the Pacers want to run with Halliburton. So those three guys, I think it was a good summer for. Now, the other thing that I think is a little bit disappointing, there's one area that was something that I think the Pacers would have really liked to have been able to take advantage where they were denied, and it's not about Tyrese Halliburton. I'll tell you what that is, and we'll give away Offspring tickets coming up shortly here on The Fan. By the way, Eddie, I think this happened yesterday while we were on the air, and we made slight mention to it, but we got to get into this whole Coldplay thing, right? I mean, this is unbelievable. Now, what I want to know is this, and I think everybody knows what I'm talking about by now, but I have a question about the Coldplay deal. I'll get to that in a second. The one thing about Summer League that, and I don't know that this was really in the cards, but I would have been curious to know. Maybe I should ask. Sometimes you see guys play in Summer League. Usually a guy plays in Summer League for like maybe 1 or 2 summers. Not often that you see them go, especially if they've been a guy that's kind of cracked into rotation. But I really thought, I know the Pacers think very highly and are very optimistic and are big believers in the potential of Jarris Walker. And I think the thing that is the most intriguing about Jarris Walker is a lot like Anthony Richardson. Which is Anthony Richardson? Is he a quarterback who is dynamic because he is built like a Tonka tank and can run like the wind? Or is he a quarterback that you're intrigued by because he has an arm strength and an accuracy on a deep ball that is fairly unique, especially for his athleticism? And with Jarris Walker, are you intrigued by him because he's built like a Tonka truck and can maybe guard on the outside with a lot of physicality against players that are more wing players and also get down in the block if you need him to? Or are you more intrigued by him because he has a finesse and a touch on the long ball that is unusual for someone of his physicality? He's very similar to Richardson in that regard, but the thing that's challenging about that is then you try to figure out, so which primary player is he for Indiana? Is he an outside shooter that can give you minutes in rotation off the bench or even spot starting as a guy that has touch and can get you that extension from the outside? Or is he a Jay Crowder type blue-collar strong guy that can guard for you and do dirty work plays? And the thing that's unique about Walker is he possesses the capability to be any and all of those things, but you don't know which one is the defined thing that he needs to be and serve. And I think that he started to really show some confidence and some ability to put together really strong stints for them. But yet it didn't happen with enough frequency where you knew exactly still what it was. And I do think, I don't know if they had designed or anticipated for him the possibility of going into Summer League, Jarris Walker, because they might have said, look, at this point, he is outgrown Summer League. But I get the feeling there's the possibility they might have gone one more summer with him there just to get accustomed to whichever spot or position they feel that he is. And then the injury happened where I'm assuming he probably still is needing time to recover on that ankle injury. Because that was more than just a slight ankle turn. I mean,
Rick Carlisle did an interview with Tony East out in Las Vegas, and Tony asked for an update on Jarris, and he said that he doesn't know where he's at, but he would assume that he's back on the basketball court now.
Yeah, I mean, but back on the court and playing in full games are two different things, right? I mean, because I did notice even in the latter part of the finals, he had a noticeable limp. I mean, that was you've sprained your ankle, obviously, I assume, Eddie, right? Playing baseball?
Oh, yeah.
Man, the thing about it is...
Well, not baseball, playing hoop, yeah.
Okay. Sometimes, I mean, there were times where it's like you almost feel like a break is better than a sprain Because if you roll it, you land on someone's foot or something, you roll it, I mean, good night. And then the first day or two, if you're still moving on it, you're okay. And then once you stop and that bad boy locks up, forget about it. You look down, you got a grapefruit on your ankle. It's brutal, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now the other thing so this Coldplay deal, right?
Okay.
For those unfamiliar, if you've been living under a rock, Coldplay was doing a concert. Where was the show?
I don't know where it was.
It was not Las Vegas, right? See if you can see where it was. I'm thinking somebody text me and let me know where that Coldplay show was. Was it Atlanta? It was a warm weather city, I think. So Coldplay's doing this show, and they're scanning around, and they're just showing people in the crowd.
Kiss cam, yeah.
Was it a kiss cam?
Something like that, yeah.
Or equivalent thereof. I mean, so they're doing it. And as they're scanning around the crowd, it was Boston. Thank you. It was in Gillette. Thank you, Ben.
Oh, yeah.
So they're scanning the crowd, and this guy's a CEO of a big company in Boston, married, and he's with the president of HR or the director of HR for his company, of which he's the CEO, multi-million-dollar company. And they're locked arm in arm, all romantic, lovey-dovey, and they show them up on the video. And immediately, like once, there's always that delay where people realize, like, oh gosh, we're on the kiss cam. And so they see that they're up on the video board, and instantly she ducks down and like runs away, and he kind of turns. And the guy from Coldplay says, well, they're either having an affair or they're incredibly shy. And everybody kind of laughs. Well, they're not only having an affair, it's like, not that any affair is good, but when you consider the business aspect of it as well, pretty bad. Now, what I want to know is this.
How is that an HR violation if it is one?
It's a great question. If it's the director of HR?
And it's the CEO?
That's a very good question. It still is, right? But here's a better question.
Who rules on that then?
That's the better question. How's it an enforced HR violation?
Yeah.
That's a better question. Now, the thing I want to know is this. When the camera pans away, there's one other girl who's like a lot younger than the CEO, certainly. And she's like laughing and smiling and like kind of incredulous. And so I want to know, A, did she know them? Is she with them? B, if she's with them, then clearly she knows about it. So does that mean she was a friend or a colleague or whatever? And then C, if that's the case, what is the couple that's stepping out here? What are they doing with the third wheel, like 25, 28-year-old woman who knows about it when theoretically, like, or seemingly nobody else does? Like, what? There's a lot to unpack there, is there not?
And you've got the fake announcement that was sent out yesterday. Did you see that?
You mean his statement?
That wasn't his statement.
That was not his statement.
No. Somebody came out and was like, yeah, that wasn't him. That was made up.
So the statement,
somebody tried to pawn it off as his.
The statement that came out.
That quoted a Coldplay song at the very end. Yeah, that was not him.
Well, no, I saw one statement, though. Okay, there was a statement that came out that said, like, this was a personal moment and a mistake, and, I apologize to my family, et cetera, et cetera. And then at the end it said, but I also, like, my privacy was violated by this being put on a public display. So you're saying that was not an actual statement?
Correct, yes.
That's being walked back?
Correct.
She is another C-level employee, I'm told, and is complicit. Now, do we know that, or is that speculation? And if so, she's probably not a C-level employee anymore, right? Like, can we assume that's now the new both CEO and president of HR? She better parlay that, baby, right? All right, concert. Speaking of, and this is a safe concert zone. Offspring tickets to give away. July 26th is when that concert's taking place. We're going to do it on the other side. In what fashion would you like to give away said tickets, Eddie?
Ooh, that's good. I'm not sure. It's Friday. Do we play it nice or do we play it tough?
We play it tough, right?
We've been doing the get to know your listener for the most part.
We could do a little offspring. We'll do a little offspring trivia. How's that? We're going to put people to the test.
Okay.
239-1070 is the telephone number. Offspring tickets to give away. We'll do it on the other side. Okay. Want to make sure that you are ducking away from the Jumbotron if you're at a Coldplay concert is what we're getting at, right? Anybody still say Jumbotron? Is it video board? What do we call it now?
I still go Jumbotron.
Okay. So the
scoreboard?
Offspring scoreboard's good, yeah. 239-1070 is the telephone number if you are interested in going to the Offspring. This is from our friends at Live Nation. It's going to be at Ruoff coming up on July 26th. Fun for all, I can tell you. Live music is so awesome, man. I'm telling you. My buddy Paul Kelly, who works for the Speedway, he's a writer for the Speedway, although he's based out of New York, upstate New York, sent me a video yesterday of he went to the Wednesday Oasis concert in Manchester. I was there Friday, Saturday last week. He went to Wednesdays of this week. And he sent me a video of him in the midst of the crowd. And, I mean, literally everybody is singing along, yelling. There's just – I was talking to a friend earlier today that said it's impossible if you experience the euphoric bliss of the camaraderie of, 80 to 100,000 people in one spot all enjoying the same moment. It's impossible to relay to others that weren't there. It kind of falls into that category of like, well, I guess you had to be there. And there's a level of that is true. But The Offspring is another one of those bands that you know a lot of their songs, probably more than you realize. And when you hear it, there's going to be, people singing along and having fun. July 26th is when that's going to take place. And we'd like to give away tickets for that. We have callers lined up. I'm going to do this in a trivia form, so to speak. So if you need to be up to date on music of the mid-'90s, I'll tell you that, because that's when The Offspring, a lot of their main stuff was. Who do we have lined up, Eddie, or who are we going with here as participant number one?
We'll start with Wilson.
Okay, Wilson. Now, Dustin and Clint, I see you're there as well. You'll get your shot here because we're going to do this in trivia form, so to speak. Wilson, how are you?
All right, how are you?
Good. How old a fella are you, Wilson, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 35.
35-year-old Wilson, okay. And when that movie Castaway came out, how many people would yell your name like you were a volleyball?
A lot of people.
I'll bet, yeah. Okay, Wilson, here we go. I'm going to give you, now 35, so that means you were born in, what, 1990?
No, 89.
89, okay. This is going to put you to test a little bit here, okay? Because you're going to have to go a little bit just kind of off like year memories. But if you listen to this show on a regular basis, now do you listen on a regular basis, Wilson, or is this your maiden voyage on Querying Company?
No, I've listened regularly.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. All right, Wilson, here's the thing. Here's the trivia question. Now, I'm going to have Eddie play for us each song, so Wilson, hear this out, okay? I'm going to give you a sample of each of these songs. But I mentioned before, The Offspring, when they broke through and hit big, their big hit was Keep 'Em Separated. That was the big song from The Offspring. And it was the absolute anthem of the summer of 1994. That summer was when I was living in New York City, and I was trying to get into the media business, and I was an intern at Music Television MTV, back when they still played music. There were the Offspring's song Keep 'Em Separated was one of basically 5 songs that were in constant rotation on MTV that summer. Okay? 4, I'm going to play for you a number of songs here. One of them is not one of those. So the rest of these were all the summer of 94. One is not. Here are your choices. The first is Sabotage by the Beastie Boys. Hit it, Eddie. Okay, that's song number 1. Song 2 is from All for One. It's called I Swear. Here we go. It's just awful. Okay, next. Fantastic Voyage from Coolio. And the last I'll offer you is Run Around by Blues Traveler. Here we go. Okay. All right, so Wilson, here is your challenge. Which of those songs was not one of those that was a mainstay at MTV in 1994?
Probably I want to say the third one. Or wait, third one.
Third one. All right, you're going to go. We're going to lock you into Coolio Fantastic Voyage. All right, let's check in with Dustin next. Dustin, you're up. You just heard the choices. Sabotage, I Swear, Coolio's Off the Board, or Runaround. Which one do you think was not part of the summer rotation of 1994?
All for one.
All for one. Okay, Dustin, how old a fella are you?
41.
Now, just out of curiosity, you're not inside that little capsule that's going down to see the Titanic at the bottom of the ocean, are you?
No, I got headphones in.
Okay, be careful. That air pressure can be a little bit much. All right, hang on, Dustin. We'll check with you. Clint is next. Clint,
Hello? Yeah.
what we know is this, okay? You got your choice here between Sabotage and Runaround. One of them was not part of the main rotation at MTV in 1994. How old a fella are you, Clint?
46.
46-year-old Clint. And Clint, are you from the Indianapolis area?
I am, yeah.
So you graduated high school somewhere around 97, is that right?
98, yeah.
98, what school was that?
Lawrence North.
LN, baby. Now, who was, let me ask you, 98, would that have been right around John Stewart, right?
Yeah, that was his maybe junior year.
Yeah, he's a great, very, very good player, obviously. Sad what happened to him, but a great player nonetheless. Okay, so you got your choices here. Sabotage by the Beastie Boys or Runaround by Blues Traveler. Which one is the one that you think was not part of the regular MTV rotation?
It's a tough one. I'm going to say Runaround.
I got news for you,
good.
Clint. You are a sharp dude. Runaround actually would have been your freshman year, and the rest of them we're talking about would have been when you were in the 8th grade. Runaround was a hit in 1995, a year later. The rest of them, Sabotage, I Swear, Fantastic Voyage, Stay by Lisa Loeb also, and The Offsprings, Keep 'Em Separated, were the regular rotation in that summer of 1994. Clint, stick around. Eddie will get your information, and we will send you on your way. Wilson and Dustin, we appreciate you listening and participating with the program.
You can always come back and have a chance to win those TBT by answering some basketball trivia later.
We do have the Query Challenge coming up later on the program for those TBT tickets indeed. I do want to talk about what took place last night and what is taking place this weekend in Indianapolis and the importance of it. A couple of months ago, and I don't remember exactly when this was, but it was a few months ago, Julie Relash, who is a friend of the show and the commissioner of the Horizon League. The Horizon League is based right here in Indianapolis. Their offices are just literally in the shadows of where we are on Market Street, just to the east of Monument Circle. The Horizon League, of course, the home conference for IU Indy, as well as, you know, you obviously have Youngstown State and Milwaukee and Robert Morris. I mean, all those schools in the Horizon League. And when Julie came in, she came in to talk about, you know, just women in sports. And I remember during that conversation talking about how Indianapolis was striving to be the women's sports capital of the world. And I say that because when I was walking around yesterday after the show, and Mark Dykton came in, and Mark and Eddie were filling in for John yesterday. And when Mark Dykton came in, he made mention of the fact that he was seeing, you know, the building of Monument Circle and transforming it, and this is what Indianapolis does when we have big events. We turn Monument Circle and the downtown walking areas into, you know, symbolism for events that are taking place. And it is very cool because I went to walk downtown, and an interesting thing happened. I was on the south side of the circle, and I saw the large display they have up that says WNBA All-Star Weekend 2025, and it's placed just in front of the Monument Circle so you could look up at the monument and see it as you walk around. And then they were putting up baskets and other things. They were building and developing, you know, bouncy houses and all of that to celebrate the All-Star Weekend. And as I walked around the circle and then decided to walk around downtown and just kind of soak things in, I walked past the building that houses the Horizon League commissioner's office, knowing that the commissioner of the Horizon League, Julie Relash, obviously, you know, a woman. And I looked up at the building facade that for so long, and it's only been in the last year or two, that one of my favorite hidden gems of Indianapolis disappeared. And that is, there's a building along Market Street that for a very, very long time you could very faintly see the ghost reminder of the painted sign on that building from 1982 for the National Sports Festival, which I've talked about before. But for those that did not hear me mention it before, and for those that did, humor me in listening again, the National Sports Festival in 1982, 43 years ago, was a huge deal. And the National Sports Festival, which, anybody that was alive back then can still hear the commercial, National Sports Festival, Indianapolis, and then the woman yelling, you got it, and the tickets going on sale. It was a huge deal. And now I can look back and realize it basically was the AAU National Championships for all sports. It was the Summer Olympics of amateur sports of people 19 and under. It was the AAU National Championships for track and field and tennis and basketball and rowing and all of those things. But at the time when it happened, Indianapolis was Indianapolis. We were a city that had the Final Four in 1980 at Market Square Arena. I don't even know how big a deal that was. Certainly not as big as it was by the time it came back in 1991. But Indianapolis was just this town with a lot of holes downtown, a lot of vacancies, and it decided at that time when the National Sports Festival was the real first dip of the toe into the water of trying to be a city that could present itself to the rest of the country as one that was more than a flyover Midwestern town. Prior to that, we were known for the Indy 500, Eli Lilly, and the RCA clay court, not even the RCA yet at that point, the clay court tennis championships. That was really about it, in the high school basketball tournament. So they did the National Sports Festival, and then Indianapolis for a period of time let it be known to the world that we were the amateur sports capital of the world. The amateur sports capital of the world. The National Sports Festival parlaying into the Pan American Games 5 years later. And the Pan Am Games were wonderful. But everybody saw how well Indianapolis could put these events on and how incredibly they were organized and exhibited and executed by a large volunteer base of people from this town that wanted to be involved in any way, shape, or form. And it was tremendous. When the Pan Am Games were here, for a 3-week period, literally everybody in Indianapolis was involved in some way. It was amazing. Anybody you talk to was like, oh, yeah, I'm volunteering. I'm the director of, helping out the rowing athletes. Or I'm the hospitality for the taekwondo athletes. Or I'm the protocol manager for roller skating, which my dad was. On and on and on. And very shortly thereafter, Indianapolis thought, wait a minute, maybe we can do more than just, yes, it's great that U.S. Track and Field is moving their headquarters here. Yes, it's great that the Natatorium has the swimming and diving Olympic championships and trials here. Yes, it's great that USA Olympic Swimming and Diving is moving their headquarters here. But maybe we could be more than the amateur sports capital. Maybe we could actually be a professional big league town. And the Colts had just moved here, and the Pacers were rising in their prominence within the NBA. And then we thought, let's go one step further. Let's get the NCAA, which, yes, I realize, and I'm using air quotes, amateur sport there, but let's become the headquarters for all kinds of sports. And we have. And this city has. And if nothing else, Indianapolis has shown that they do it better than anybody. Even the media that comes to Indianapolis to cover events talks about the incredible orchestration, the fine-tuned nature of everything humming along, the volunteer base, and all of that. And when Julie Relash came in that day, a couple of months ago, we were talking about and getting excited for all of the events that were taking place in Indianapolis surrounding women's sports. And last night, in partnership with our friends at Franciscan Health, the company that Eddie and I work for, Radio One, put on the Heart and Hustle Awards to showcase women in sports and Franciscan Health, their dedication towards wellness for women, but also the placement of women and the importance of women in sports and athletics in Indianapolis. And for Indianapolis to say, the amateur sports capital of the world, box checked. The headquarters of the NCAA and the regular rotation of the Final Four, box checked. Largest single-day spectator sport in the world in the Indianapolis 500 annually, box checked. Hosting a Super Bowl and being the home of a Super Bowl champion, box checked. But one of those boxes that had yet to be checked was exactly that, in finding again a place in athletics that Indianapolis could stamp itself. And being the women's, and I mean, it's not like there's some official title that comes with this. It's not like you're going to land at the airport and there's going to be a big sign that says Indianapolis, women's sports capital of the world. But the WNBA All-Star Game is a critically important piece to that. And the events that are taking place downtown to celebrate the WNBA. They have, and I saw it yesterday when I was going to this event at the convention center last night. You have the summer celebration of Indiana Black Expo taking place, which is obviously an annual event that is a celebration and an important part of the culture of Indianapolis and the history of Indiana. But in addition to that, the WNBA All-Star Game, I saw plenty of fans here that are not from Indianapolis that came in for this event. And yes, Caitlin Clark is not going to be in the three-point shootout. And Lexi Hull will take her place, so the Fever will be represented tonight. And yes, Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell will be in the All-Star Game, but Caitlin Clark will not. But the Fever will still be represented. But more importantly, what's going to be represented, and I think this is the important point that was made and addressed last night that I probably had not really stopped to think about. It's one thing to say that you want to be something. It's another to put the wheels in motion to try to strive to be that and to execute it. Having a plan is one thing. Executing a plan is another. And if you're listening right now to my voice, you likely are if not a parent, you're a sibling to, or a role model towards, or a mentor towards, or maybe even yourself, a young person who wants to be involved in sports in some way, playing it, coaching it, talking about it, covering it, whatever it might be. And Lara Overton last night, who was there on behalf of the Indianapolis Colts and the Irsay daughters at this event, made a very interesting point that sports participation for girls by the age of 14 drops by like 50% what it does for boys. And I think that's because oftentimes when you are going into a venture in your life, you're doing so by following the example of what you have seen. To be something, oftentimes you have to see something. Indianapolis decided to be the amateur sports capital of the world on its own fruition, granted. But then once it did that and it was the amateur sports capital of the world, then it saw the example and it aspired to go beyond. And it became the NCAA headquarters and the pro sports capital of the world, when you have the Super Bowl and those things, the epicenter of the sports world and different points in the calendar. And for young girls, you may be saying to yourself, I'm not a fan of the WNBA. I don't mean you dislike it. You might be saying, I don't watch the WNBA. I don't watch the Fever. They're relatively new. I'm 60 years old. They've only been around for 20, 25 years. Fair. But sometimes you have to look at things and say, but what about for the people behind me? What about the generation behind me? What about your daughters? What about your nieces? What about other people that you know for young girls? And what now you have is the example of the showcase of display of the finest female basketball players in the world right here in Indianapolis, which is important because that shows young girls that they can be part of a world and an arena that they have not necessarily been a part of for generations and generations ago, that their mothers, their aunts, their grandmothers didn't necessarily see. Because to be something, as Samson Livingston pointed out last night, which is a great point, to be something, oftentimes it becomes more facilitated by seeing something. So I would strongly encourage for people to come down, if you have young people, and just walk around. Just let them see that there is a celebration of women's sports taking place right now currently in Indianapolis, that the biggest stage is taking place in Indianapolis for this ongoing event. And the NBA All-Star Game was fantastic. It was fabulous. And it was another example of Indianapolis putting forth its best foot and showing the world that we can put things on. But this is different because it's a different audience that didn't feel like they had that example. I mentioned earlier that when I played basketball as a young person, I wanted to develop a better left-handed game. So I did nothing for a year but watch left-handed players and went out in the driveway and shot like left-handed players and moved like left-handed players. I was never going to be left-handed, but by seeing that, I could then kind of be that. And so that's the kind of example that I looked towards, and that allowed it and made it easier for me. And that's what I think is so awesome about what's going on in downtown Indianapolis right now, and I certainly hope people can come down and enjoy it and soak it in, because it is. Now, the other thing, Eddie, I don't know if you noticed, did they finish the steps on the circle? Do we know?
No, they have not.
But they're working on that, right?
Yes.
Eventually, we hope that that's going to get done. I still have a program, by the way. This is probably what makes me like the weirdest human being on the planet. I still have a program from the National Sports Festival. And I do know this. Ken Barlow was in it, and I think Jeff George was in it too. Charles Barkley was in the National Sports Festival in 1982, and I don't think Carl Lewis was, but I'm telling you, it was like the Olympic of the Olympic events back in 1982. And we can look back on it fondly, and we can also be proud of where we've come as a city since then. And you are always trying to grow. You're always trying to expand. You're always trying to add to your portfolio. And for Indianapolis to add to the portfolio, the women's sports capital is fantastic. And this weekend is a very, very big part of that. We'll get back into what's going to be taking place next week, which is pretty darn significant here in central Indiana. Starts on, I believe, Wednesday. And that means plenty of time on the road for this show. We'll explain next. So we know what's coming up this week of significance at Grand Park. We'll get into that in just a second. My name is Jake Query, Eddie Garrison, the other voice you hear on this program.
You're talking about travel and baseball and softball tournaments, right?
That's correct. Yeah, all kinds of baseball teams running around Grand Park, which is right on the shadows of the old 3J, which was the best. 3J Thunder Island, which was awesome. I think they finally are starting to take out the remnants of the old water slides there where Shannon Doherty filmed a movie in 1990, which was snubbed by the Oscars. Very few probably even know what I'm talking about. I'm speaking esoteric, old-school indie logo there, I realize. But speaking of exactly that, before we get into talking about the Colts, Nick calls in the program. Nick, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fantastic, Jake. It's a pleasure to be with you again. I wanted to call in, and you've sprung 3Js on me, which brings so many good memories.
Now, let me ask you, Nick, how old a fella are you, Nick?
I am an inch just younger than you.
Okay. So
the last time we spoke, we discussed Krista Akers, if that gives you any concept.
Oh, yeah. You know the Akers family, right? Krista's 1 year older than me, but yes, and Greg Akers 2 years older than me. But let me ask you this. When you went to 3J back in the day, would you do which was better, the water slides or the go-kart track?
Well, the go-kart track was great until they put governors on the engines. So I would say that the water, especially because, as you know, July and August in Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, water is all you want.
Angel Reese just sent a tweet that said, we're in Indy for the All-Star game, and it feels like Miami. So, yes. Doesn't look like Miami, but it feels like it.
It feels like Miami. Which way does she mean that?
I think she simply means that. I'm assuming she means the humidity thereabout, right? Okay.
Well, it could have been out. They were out partying last night, Jake. A bunch of the All-Stars.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Well, hey, that'd be cool, right? Okay. So then the other thing, Nick, since I jogged your memory today and started taking you down, as we now have become the two old guys at the end of the Muppets, the other thing that I jogged your memory about was what?
National Sports Festival, Indianapolis.
Okay, here we go.
Sports Festival.
Good. You got it.
Hell yeah. That was the best, Nick. That was the best.
You got it.
Uh-huh. That maniacal woman scared all of us when we were kids, trust me. That lady screaming at the swimmers scared the hell out of me, Nick. And then the Pan Am Games was 5 years after, and everybody and their brother was involved in some way, shape, or form. Just as everybody will be involved in some way, shape, or form with the Colts coming up at Camp Grand Park. They could report on Wednesday. Things get underway. And plenty of chances. Actually, they have this year a higher number of night practices, a true night practice taking place, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And there are several storylines that I think are fascinating. Kevin Bowen going to join us coming up about 25 minutes from now. We'll get more in-depth on it. But one of the things I mentioned earlier is yesterday the news, and Eddie, I think you raised a very interesting question, and that is, which was the bigger storyline yesterday in Indianapolis? Was it Caitlin Clark announcing that she will not be a part of the WNBA All-Star Weekend? Or was it the news that Anthony Richardson's shoulder has now been given the full go-ahead to participate, and that the time away and the rest that he took has him ready to go for training camp, and that this quarterback competition with Daniel Jones is an authentic one and is going to be a legitimate quarterback competition? Which of those two storylines do you, Eddie, believe is the bigger one?
See, to me, I lean. You said the Caitlin Clark or the Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson part of this?
Well, which is a bigger story? Caitlin Clark not available, Anthony Richardson available.
I would probably say Caitlin Clark not being available. Because we anticipated both of them, and to some extent, right? Like, you have to wonder. I know it had a major impact on the ticketing prices for tonight for the skills competition and 3-point contest. Like, ticket prices dropped $40 because Caitlin Clark wasn't participating. What does that do for the All-Star game ticket prices on Sunday? Are fans still going to go to the level in which they were going to go if Caitlin was playing? What does it do for him? A TV ratings perspective?
I think TV ratings are going to suffer.
Right.
Well, to be honest with you, though, if you are the analogy that I always give, or not analogy, but the scenario with which I always present, if you're that guy living in Jefferson City, Missouri, that it's a rainy day on Sunday, you were going to mow the lawn, but it's raining outside, so you're laying on the couch, you're flipping the channels, the Goonies is on, yeah, that's cool. You flip past that for a little bit. There's an old Andy Griffith on, that's cool. You flip past that, and then you land on the WNBA All-Star game. And you're like, okay. And so you're interested. That guy or gal may not realize, like, oh, the WNBA All-Star game. Like, I know that Caitlin Clark that played at Iowa was in the WNBA. Let's see what she's doing here. I don't know that that person is aware of the fact that she's not playing. So they may give it a watch before they realize, oh, gosh, Caitlin Clark's not playing. She's hurt. Okay, boom, and now they're off. I don't know how many people outside of WNBA fans are aware of the fact that she's not going to be playing. But, yes, I agree with you that your ability to keep that group, that transcendent passerby audience, to get them to log in and stay long enough to register as part of the ratings for it probably do take a dip. That's going to be the challenge. I think the atmosphere and the buzz of, and again, when I say buzz, I mean energy, not buzz like Miami Club that might also be part of Miami. But but I think that the overall energy and atmosphere of it for the downtown area, I think that's still, I'm hopeful that still takes place, because Caitlin Clark is still going to be kind of the host or hostess of the city here, one would assume, even though you have Lexi Hull, who is still partaking in the three-point shootout, and then Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston still representing the Fever in the game itself.
Caitlin will coach her team.
And yes, that as well, right? I mean, she's going to be a part of the festivities, just not playing.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, Anthony Richardson and what it means for camp. I have one area of pause here. I'm not trying to be glass half full or glass half empty, I guess, in this case. And I'm not trying to be a pessimist, but in being a realist, there is one area of the news yesterday about Anthony Richardson that gives me a little bit of pause. And I'm a precedent guy. I always talk about, like, you learn from past experience and precedent, and you prepare. When I went to that concert on Saturday,
yeah,
this Oasis show that we do, it's 80,000 people. Now, this makes no sense to me, but everything about that weekend and that concert was bliss. Everything about it was perfect. Literally no hitches whatsoever, with the exception of one thing, and that is that this concert was in this massive park the size of Central Park in Manchester, England.
Yeah.
And we took the train to the show on Friday. And then once the show was over, we go back to the train station, and they're like, oh, this train station's closed. What? Like the exit for Heaton Park closes at 9 o'clock, and they didn't keep it open for the, 100,000 people that are trying to get out of there. So we had to walk a long way to get to another train station and then hop on a train, and it was a long, circuitous route. So based on precedent of Friday night, on Saturday, my cousin and I were a little more savvy, and we scouted out an escape route to get us out of there, out of the thick of the crowd, because 100,000 people leaving at one time is it's like leaving the 500, right? But we went on precedent to have preparation for what takes place the next night because of what we'd been through before. And that's where I have a little bit of pause about what we're going to see at Grand Park. And I'll explain further on the other side. We got TBT tickets to give away as well, which we will do after we talk to Kevin Bowen at 2 o'clock. I hate to admit this. I hate admitting this. There are two songs that when I hear them, I actually secretly enjoy it and kind of turn it up and jam along. Because there are two songs that when they, kind of like the Macarena effect, they came out and then it just was like, oh my gosh, I can't escape this. It's ubiquitous. It's driving me crazy. Everywhere I turn, everybody's playing it. That's one of them.
You like that? You like that?
And I do like that song. I do, right? The other one is the Proclaimers' I Would Walk 500 Miles, which was around the same time. But that song, you know, after a while, it was everywhere, and then it's like overly catchy, and before you know it, you're singing it, and you can't get it out of your head. If you played the Proclaimers' I Would Walk 500 Miles, and it's a scientific fact, actually. If you hear at least 18 seconds of that song, it sticks in your head for 18 days, along with that one you just played, which isn't bad because I like it. But you hear it, and it sticks. It gets in your head, and you can't get. It's like the fly in your car. You can't get rid of it. Like, where is it? Where is it? And then boom, there it is again. It just keeps hitting.
Kind of like when you douse yourself in cologne, Jake. It just keeps hitting me in the face.
My cologne I get a lot of compliments on it.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Do you not like I'm going with a cleaner scent today.
I can't smell it.
See? You said it keeps, maybe you're immune to it at this point.
Maybe.
Anthony Richardson, in the news yesterday that his shoulder is good to go. The only thing about that is obviously the desired result of his time away when they had their last workouts, when he wasn't there. And they said, we're shelving him now. That's the good news. The thing is this, though. When you look at Richardson and when he had the original shoulder injury and they elected to have surgery, which was critically important because that shelved him for a time where his growth period was of the most important stage. And so he was missing very important time in the, by NFL terms, formidable years of learning the position. But, of course, the narrative or the process from it was that by having that surgery, that meant he would not have problems for, like, look, we know this is an issue. We know he's going to miss time, but we are going to nip this in the bud, and therefore it's not going to be an issue moving forward. We're going to do this surgery because you do it now, you get it out of the way, you rip off the Band-Aid, everything's healthy, and bada boom, let's go. And then, of course, when he started getting pain again, and you get like scar tissue buildup or whatever it is, then you say, wait a minute, I thought the surgery was supposed to take care of that. Well, it might be a different area. And we have a PTSD in this town from Andrew Luck of recurring injuries and things of that nature. And so, therefore, when this happened again, you thought, well, wait a minute, the precedent is such, okay. Now, Eddie, see, I told you, 18 seconds of it, and it's stuck in your head for 18 days. Okay. Okay. Well, at least we didn't get to the point where they start doing the da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? But if that hits in your head, then there's no turning back. You get to a point where there's absolutely no turning back. And
remember
that's the
when
problem.
he did have that injury and we were discussing, because that was his rookie season, we were discussing that maybe that time off would help him become a better pro. And then look how last year turned out. Got the top out. You got questions about him.
Yeah. Being
dedicated towards the job.
Well, then again, you have to wonder if, maybe it just so happened that, like, okay. Now, again, we're up to like 9 seconds. These guys, if you do it one more time, okay. Listen, I'm just telling you, if we get one more round of it, then it's going to be stuck in people's heads and that's not good because camp is only like 18 days anyway, right? But yes, you are correct in the fact that the time I think that when we said, Eddie, that by sitting and observing that would be good for Anthony Richardson, maybe we were just convincing ourselves of trying to find some positive to make up for the fact of how important it was for him to just be out there to learn reps, learn pacing, learn spacing, learn windows. You know, the number one thing that quarterbacks will tell you in going from college to the pros is how the line from Peyton Manning and Tom Moore in his rookie year. When Tom Moore said, like, why did you not throw the ball right there? And Manning said, well, because the window wasn't open. And Tom Moore said, in the NFL, that was an open window. That wasn't an open window at Tennessee. You're right. In the NFL, that's an open window because that's how quickly it happens. And learning that timing only happens when you're out on the field. And because he couldn't learn that, maybe we were trying to make ourselves feel better by saying, well, but he can learn by watching. And we accepted the fact that it was all necessary because he had to do the surgery so they didn't have to, there would be no further complication. My point being that with this latest rebound from a setback, the precedent is such that do we look at it and say, okay, we're good to go, or are you always waiting for the next round of that soreness to kick in? Okay. Now, come on. See, there we go. It's starting to get catchy, is it not?
No.
You know what's going to happen tonight at like 3 o'clock in the morning?
Stop.
You're going to start doing the dut-dut-dut, right? Uh-huh. Okay. You're going to do the dut-dut-dut, I'm telling you.
No.
Be careful. Be careful what you wish for. The dut-dut-dut's going to be there. But the good news is we have a quarterback battle now between Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones that looks authentic. We are starting with a clean slate. They took the Etch-a-Sketch. They shook it. They shook it up.
What was that?
They shook it up. They cleaned it. And then now, bada boom, everything's clean. I still think Daniel Jones is going to be your starter.
Clean? Like zest-free clean, Jake?
That is.
Remember that?
They cleaned it up. Yes, they cleaned it up. Speaking of cleaning it up, somebody just gave me an interesting tidbit on Chris Ballard.
Really?
Yep. I'll share it with you and Kevin Bowen when he joins us next. It's a guilty pleasure. I like the song. But I'm telling you now, somebody tonight, you mark my words, I'm going to make an official proclamation right here at 1 minute after 2 o'clock in Indianapolis, which is 1 minute after 2 o'clock everywhere in the Eastern time zone. I will boldly proclaim right now, just as sure as the fact that this band is called the Proclaimers, that somewhere, somehow tonight, and I'm going to guess it's going to be at 11:17 p.m. tonight, someone is going to randomly text me at 523-9288, which is my cell phone number. Somebody's going to text 523-9288 and say at 11:17, damn you, Jake, that song is stuck in my head. Because if you hear it for 18 seconds, it's there for 18 days. But it is a good song, right? Which means if it's 18 days, okay, I'm telling you, it's going to happen tonight. I guarantee it. Actually, they're going to damn you, Eddie, because you're playing it, not me. For the next 18 days, we will be, for the better part of that, out in Grand Park. Certainly Kevin Bowen will be, and covering the Colts training camp getting underway for 2025-2026. And what I know is this, Chris Ballard going to look sharp because somebody just sent me, and I will, you know what? Kevin Bowen, I'll put this to you in trivia form. You ready?
I'm all ears.
Somebody just sent me a message saying they just ran into Chris Ballard, who is getting a fresh haircut in anticipation of training camp at what common haircutting facility in Westfield?
He is at, I can't say I know Westfield haircut places. He's at Sport Clips.
That is an outstanding guess. I do like the Sport Clips, by the way, at 71st and Keystone. There's a girl there that does a really good job. And my people compliment me on my hair a lot.
Where's the place that you get pampered with?
Reds does that.
No,
right?
It's not up there, though.
Oh, 459 is a great
Yes.
place. 459 is a great place. They do straight razor shaves, all of it. That's a great place. I go there frequently as well. Supercuts is your answer. Chris Ballard, a Supercuts guy. And he's going to have to make some Supercuts when it comes to the end of training camp. That much we know. But we'll begin with the big news. Kevin Bowen, who, of course, you hear on the Fan Morning Show along with James Boyd, Jeff Rickard, every morning from 7 until 10. The Colts are his primary beat. And the news now that Anthony Richardson is good to go and gets unleashed with no problems with that shoulder, Kevin. My hesitation is we've heard this before, and it seems to, are we entering into this shoulder can be a nagging injury category?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the report itself with him throwing, I think Stephen Holder's exact language was throwing with velocity is a good thing. Now, I would say the question becomes how quickly is he back splitting reps? That, to me, is probably the next question because I still put Daniel Jones aggressively in the QB1, top of the depth chart, however you want to define it, spot until that occurs. And, you know, one thing to note about the training camp is, you know, this time next week will be 3 straight days into camp. They'll actually practice for a 4th straight day a week from Saturday. So they'll go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday next week. That's it for their only 3 or 4 day straight practice schedule throughout camp. After that, everything's pretty choppy, like 2 days or 1 day or 2 days, which is, I would think, good news for Richardson. So, again, next week, I'll be curious what exactly is his schedule. But I think it's vital for him, you know, as early as possible into camp to not only be practicing, but to be splitting those reps. Because right now, I still think it's Daniel Jones in that starting quarterback chair.
Okay, let's break it down this way. And I realize Daniel Jones, Kevin Bowen, we watched as a New York Giant. We have yet to see him play as an Indianapolis Colt. But if you were to, and we'll begin with Jones, give me something that Daniel Jones does as a quarterback that Anthony Richardson does not.
Probably can find a little bit more methodical and steady in the passing game better than Richardson. You know, maybe a little bit less risky, which has pros and cons, but they might view it as a pro in that, you know, he's not turning the ball over at the level that Richardson turned it over last year. So, yeah, those are probably a couple things I'd point to.
So more of a rhythm passer. Is that safe to say? Kind of more of just a consistent rhythm of maybe not deep ball stuff, but just extending the ball with more accuracy. Better, easy way of saying it?
Yeah, but, I'd also mention, too, and I guess, there's no way for me to say this without it being a knock on Anthony Richardson. Like, you asked me to compare it to Anthony Richardson, one of the worst throwing quarterbacks we've seen in the NFL. So, like, that, it's not like Daniel Jones is, on a Mount Rushmore Pro Bowl quarterbacks here. But when you compare him to his competition, then he does look, a little bit different.
Okay. Tell me something that Anthony Richardson does that Daniel Jones does not.
More dynamic runner, but as a quarterback, certainly deep ball. I think that's more on the Richardson, pedigree of, Alec Pierce certainly has benefited from that. Say more willing to throw the ball down the field, and I do think that is a definite strength of Richardson. I don't think there's any question about that. I think he not only is a willing deep ball thrower, but honestly, I feel better about him throwing the ball 15, 20 yards down the field than I do throwing the ball 5 to 10 yards down the field.
Kevin, is there some truth to this that we're psyching ourselves out here? We're trying to pump ourselves up. We're trying to feel good about it. We're trying to make, chicken salad out of chicken bleep. And the bottom line is, if a guy cannot be a consistent throwing quarterback at this point of his career in the National Football League, it ain't ever going to happen. And we're just going through window dressing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it. Honestly, it goes back to Richardson when he was drafted and the old question, can you teach accuracy? I think that's a very, some people would say that's, a bit of an innate thing when it comes to really any sport. But I do think when you draft a player like Richardson and, you have the amount of coaching that you have around him, and the age that he was drafted at, I also can sit here and say, if you're going to make that investment, you probably should wait until his first healthy NFL offseason. Again, the answer might already be there, but don't draft the dude 4th overall if you're not going to at least wait until the first healthy NFL offseason for him to, make the fundamental changes that you felt like were there. And that's now. Obviously, that just transpired, and I know that he missed 7 of the 9 team practices in the spring. So the healthy offseason, ended a little bit there. But it looks like his absence is not going to be, too deep, if any, now into training camp there. And, the thing, too, with Richardson, and I think he's shown this, you're not asking for him to be Drew Brees or Phillip Rivers with accuracy. I think one of the wilder stats with Richardson is, he's 8-7 as a starting quarterback. So, I mean, it's not like it's been horrific. And you fired the defensive coordinator that he has had for those 15 starts. So, clearly he does bring something to the table that has allowed him to do, decent stuff in the NFL, but to sustain it over a career where your running ability will not be able to be relied on, I think, at a frequent occurrence. The deeper you get into your career and the more injuries pile up, then you've got to become, a better player from the pocket. And that becomes the big question, right now.
I've thought about this. Kevin Bowen, our guest, by the way, on the program here. Kevin, let's say this goes as we kind of expect, or at least as I expect, and that is that Daniel Jones becomes your starter. I personally don't think that you sign a guy on a $14.5 million flyer just to have depth, right? So let's say that Daniel Jones is in fact the guy, and let's say he plays well. Say he plays well and the Colts go 10-7. Maybe they flirt with a wild card, or they get a wild, they get one game, let's say, in the playoffs. Do you believe that Daniel Jones is really being brought in to get an audition to be the long-term guy for the Colts? Or is it more so that Daniel Jones is brought in so that if he wins that spot, you can truly get a good inventory and itemization of what you have in terms of the rest of the weapons for whoever your next young franchise quarterback is going to be?
I'd say more the former. I mean, Daniel Jones is, if this doesn't work for Daniel Jones, he might not get another opportunity.
But what I'm saying is, what if it does, but it doesn't work? What if it works just well enough like I said, where they go 10-7. Is he the guy, he's 28 years old, that you say, okay, let's give him now a multi-year deal? Or do you say, hey, thanks because you kind of showed us what we needed to know of what we have in our offense with a stable quarterback, so now we're going to go out and find, and do this over again with a younger player that's 23, 24 that we can build around for 10 years?
Yeah, I've always been a believer that Band-Aids largely don't work when you're talking about quarterback, and I would argue they don't work in today's AFC. I think if you look at the quarterbacks in this conference, they are not Band-Aids. They are young, they're good, and they're everywhere. I think it's kind of a golden era of young quarterbacks in the AFC. So I would say no on that. Obviously, and we don't need to get into dissecting what your 10-7 hypothetical would look like, but Carson Wentz sniffed a very similar record, and I don't think at that point you look like a team that was necessarily saying, oh yeah, let's build around Carson Wentz. So and that was before everything fell off there in the final couple weeks of the season. So again, how it would look is something, I kind of brought this up today. It's just kind of wild that basically James and I are having this conversation. More or less, Jake, the Colts have said, we are bringing Daniel Jones here because we feel like the Giants were the epitome of dysfunction. They lacked support around him. They didn't do enough for him, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, wow, that football team, the Giants, beat you by 40 points twice in the last 3 years. Like, it's like, wait, how does that team that you're pretty much indirectly saying, yeah, well, they were such a joke in trying to help out their young quarterback. We feel like we are better around that quarterback. And yet when you face that team, you got ran off the field in both of those matchups, and one being against Drew Lock here, whatever that was back in December, January. So it is just kind of wild how it all has unfolded here. So yeah, there is an attempt, I guess, at a resurrection project. With Jones, if you want to play a little bit of the pro angle to it, he's 27, not 37. So, it's not like you went out and signed one of the McCown brothers. And, you did sign someone more in the Sam Darnold or, Baker Mayfield age range. So I guess that offers you a little bit more, but those guys can work in the NFC. I just don't think they can work in today's AFC.
Kevin, what player not named Tyler Warren or that of the quarterback position are you kind of most intrigued about that you've done a lot of writing for the website and talking on the morning show, obviously, about position battles or things to, kind of laying out for us the blueprint of what you think might be the real things to look for within the Colts training camp here in 25. Give me a player that maybe you didn't anticipate it being the case, but you found yourself writing about more than you would have guessed a year ago because they are one of really good intrigue for you, either positively or negatively.
Well, I guess we could go. Yeah, honestly, just a few months ago, Justin Wally, the third-round pick out of Minnesota, I wouldn't have thought he would be potentially competing for a starting job, but maybe with Jalen Jones missing a couple weeks in the spring, Wally was a guy that this staff really singled out. And Eddie and I had this conversation earlier in the week. Jake, if you're a defensive player, you've got to realize that there's a new sheriff in town with Lou Anarumo, and if you weren't acquired by him, then you might have one eye of skepticism on just how this defensive staff views you. And Wally's a guy that was drafted by this regime. That is advantage him. I'm not saying Anarumo hates all of the defensive personnel that Gus Bradley helped, get and draft and sign, et cetera, but still, there's just, different fits and, different eyeballs on these guys. So, I guess a third corner in today's NFL is vital to have cornerback depth. So that would be one. At center, how much is that competition really Danny Pinter and Tanner Bortolini? Late last season when both were healthy, Tony Sperano Jr., again, a guy that, drafted Bortolini, but, he opted for Pinter late in the year. Is that just because it was a 1 week thing in mid-December and, a rookie going into, quite a loud environment, or is that something that, again, that's a competition that's a little bit realer? That would be something to keep an eye on. There's a slew of tight ends behind Tyler Warren. young guys, Drew Ogletree, Will Mallory, like, do they step up at all? I mean, they were mid-round draft picks at tight end. That's not the craziest thought in the world that those guys turn out to be good players for you. Jelani Woods is still on the roster for what it's worth. So, is there a hope and a prayer for him probably getting his final shot on a rookie contract? Juju Brents would, maybe fall into a bit of that category as well. So, those would be kind of some of the names that come to mind.
I asked Matt Taylor this question yesterday. I'll ask it to you, Kevin Bowen, today, and that is this. Tyler Warren, we know, is going to be the tight end, assuming he's healthy, that's going to get probably the most opportunity here. But if all of the tight ends in the tight end room for the Colts were left, like let's say that there was one of those expansion type drafts, right? If you had to leave unprotected all of the tight ends, which tight end for the Indianapolis Colts do you think would be the one that would be most coveted by other franchises?
Not named Warren, obviously.
Correct.
That's a good one. I don't know, if you're playing like 1 year of football and you just need a blocker, maybe it'd be Mo Alley Cox. If you're trying to opt for a little bit more of the future, Mallory or Ogletree, I think, would be that player. Ogletree maybe a little bit more of a combo. Mallory, obviously, that last name very well. I mean, he comes from that family, and he, for what it's worth, he also put up good numbers. It's not just like he showed up at the combine and became a track star. He did run the fastest 40 of any tight end at the combine a few years ago, and I don't know. I feel like occasionally it's like, he makes a play in a game. I'm like, oh man, maybe there's something there with him. So I'd probably say Mallory, but I could also see Ogletree just have a little bit more of a versatility element to him.
Okay, another thing that we've discussed over the course of the week, and I want your thought on it, Kevin, and that is, with the new defensive coordinator, is there a player that you look towards and you say, it's been a really good defensive player for the Colts, but that was under a different regime, and I worry that player might be more system-oriented and doesn't necessarily have transferable skill set that means that he is going to have the same production now under Anarumo that we saw previously?
Yeah, again, it's a great question. I brought up Jalen Jones earlier. I thought Jalen Jones, honestly, has just been a nice corner. Like, he was a 7th-round pick, so I think I've, unfairly labeled him as, like, nice story. And it's like, no, wait, that dude's actually pretty good, but you are going to be asked to do different things cornerback-wise. Does that check his box still? So that would be one. I think you go up to the defensive line. We had Ballard on at the combine. He mentioned that position group would be scouted differently. So, theoretically, the skill sets of that room don't necessarily apply directly to what Anarumo wants. We didn't see a ton of turnover. They did draft a defensive lineman in round 2, but now you're getting into the Kwity Payes of the world and the Tyquan Lewises of the world, and some of those guys that were the previous regime. Those would probably be a few names. Nick Cross had a great year last year. He was one of the youngest players ever in his draft class. So maybe they just took him a little bit of time, but he was, again, really one of the few bright spots. So is there more there in a contract year? I'd say a guy that maybe has benefited clearly on paper would be Jalen Carlisle, 5th-round pick last year, safety turned linebacker. I mean, they hardly touched linebacker at all.
But they seem very high on him, right?
Right. But again, he was hurt in the spring, so we didn't really get to see him. So he would be one that, I think would kind of be the reverse of your question, one that has benefited.
Kevin Bowen, our guest. Kevin, before we shift to, because I do want to get into a basketball question with you real quick, but I guess just kind of on a broad stroke, the thing that for this particular Colts camp, the quarterback position is going to be what we're going to be talking about probably all the way up until September, right? But of this Colts preseason, the burning question, the big storyline, the thing that has most intrigued you, I'll put it this way, Kevin. If you recall when you and I were doing the morning show together, I was finishing up college elective classes, and there were a couple of classes that I think I was, telling you and Mark, man, I just can't get like a firm grasp on this particular subject matter. I just can't tackle it. It feels foreign to me. What story is there for you that no matter which way you decipher it, you just don't know which way it's going to go, and it's totally foreign to you in terms of trying to explain how it's going to play out because it's just that hard to predict?
Shout out to your math tutor, by the way. I forget her name, but boy, was she a godsend or what, helping me out. You would always meet her at
Terry Means.
I think it might have been the Glendale Library.
That is
or
correct.
something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to her. She was a godsend. Well, I guess could I go off the field? How does Carly Ursay-Gordon view the franchise?
Yep. I think that's the big one, right?
How quickly does she want to make a serious imprint on things? That's probably where I would go. If it starts to derail early, like we haven't seen too many of these seasons derail really, really early for the Colts, but if it starts to, is there any thought to her of like, hey, you know what? This is going to be my first time doing this. Do I want to get a head start on this? Do I want to just can everybody, whatever, early December and, really try to get a leg up on the, competition for Black Monday and all that? Again, these are, hypotheticals that I don't foresee necessarily happening. But again, these are thoughts now of we have been used to Jim Irsay decision-making for 30-some years. So it's different now. How is that going to be? So, yeah, I don't know if you were looking for off the field, but that's honestly probably the one that's been a dominant thought.
And also just seeing how she observes camp versus a year ago, because she, Kevin, for those that are unfamiliar, and you can expand on this a little bit, it's not like the Irsay daughters were, a year ago not around the franchise. I mean, it's not like you are airdropping somebody in who has not had some level of observation and involvement, correct, over the last couple of years.
Oh, well, yeah, without question. I mean, I've probably seen Carly Ursay at a Colts practice 50 times more than I saw Jim Irsay at a Colts practice over the last, and you could go back to even, I don't know, probably more like the last, like maybe 3 to 4 years. So, yeah, I don't, there's no, like, questioning her, whatever, her lack of attention around the day-to-day operations of the organization. No, she's had, I'd argue, more of that than her father. Lately, it's more of the, when you make a hire or a fire, it's particularly at the GM level, because, Chris Ballard, for the most part, I think he largely ran that head coaching search 2 cycles ago or 2 years ago with Steichen. Sometimes you see that if you have the GM and you're going to let him, call the shot of a hire of a head coach, then, he's probably going to run it. But if you're hiring a GM, well, that probably falls on ownership's plate, more than anything. So, again, that is something that's different. Last time they hired a GM was, 2017? And, yes, Carly was involved, but still, that was a long, long time ago. So, that would be a question I would have.
Okay, lastly, I want to know where we stand on the Benedict Mathurin statue building, because it's going to be a big year for him, right? Do we wait?
Boy, it is such a big year for him. I think it's there's still a blueprint. It's gathered a little bit of dust. There was a time or two during the NBA Finals where that dust was, kind of swept to the right side of it, particularly after Game 3. If Game 7 would have gone differently there late, we'd be talking about him as a folk hero for the rest of life here. But boy, what a great opportunity, but also I think what a confusing opportunity. Like if let's say he blossoms, plays unreal. Well, is there a team that says, hey, man, that Halliburton guy's going to come back. Why don't you come here and you won't have to, you can dominate the ball. You can, be our lead guy. You can be our lead scorer. Is that attractive to him? And I think it's really for all Pacers, but Mathurin's the most obvious one. Jake, they're all going to be asked to do different things this season. So, how do you evaluate that? Like, do you evaluate that as just kind of an outlier year? Like, if Andrew Nemhard has a bad year, does that all of a sudden mean Andrew Nemhard's not a fit? Well, you're not going to ask him to be point guard 82 nights out of the year when Halliburton comes back. So, I think just evaluation-wise, it's very, very interesting. But, yeah, Walker, Mathurin, huge. I'm still pretty bullish on Mathurin. I get that he can be an acquired taste, but I think at times we, frankly, nitpick him like no other. I think it's a tad unfair, and I think should not take for granted how gifted of a scorer he is. And I think at times in the playoffs, yes, up and down, he showed that at an extraordinarily high level. I mean, how many guys are coming off the bench and scoring 20 points in multiple NBA Finals games? Not many, and he did that. So, I think at times we still just, a little bit too overly nitpicky with him.
Things get underway Wednesday at camp, right, Kevin? I know you guys will be out there a fair amount, correct?
Yes, we'll actually be out there Tuesday for report day. We typically get a player or two because early morning activity there. So we should get that. But yes, Wednesday for practice, we'll be out there all the morning practice days.
All right, we look forward to it. Appreciate the time as always, Kevin. Enjoy the weekend, all right?
Have a great weekend, boys.
We will try. That is Kevin Bowen joining us on the always busy and available, once again, to be sponsored guest line here on Query & Company. Speaking of, by the way, partnerships, we have one with Chicago's Pizza. We are thrilled about that, and I like Chicago's Pizza so much that I like to share it a little bit, which means that we
love
just did
Chicago's Pizza, Jake. Not just you. You don't have to isolate yourself over there.
Man, I'll tell you what, the one that we had, they brought in several on Wednesday. Which one was your favorite?
I didn't get a chance to try the bacon cheeseburger.
Oh, man.
You and Landon Coons devoured that entire half of the pizza before I even had a chance to open
Then
up
crispy
the box.
crust, it was awesome. The breadsticks were unbelievable,
I had
right?
the barbecue chicken. Cannot go wrong with that.
And, of course, their specialty at Chicago's Pizza is that of the deep dish variation, even though, as I mentioned, Chicago started in Indianapolis right here in 1979. Technically speaking, deep dish to an extent is a Detroit-style pizza, but Chicago-style, if you will, but Indianapolis heritage. But we have a gift card to give away right now for Chicago's Pizza since we just did a deep dish on the Indianapolis Colts. Your chance to enjoy a deep dish pizza, traditional, whatever it might be. ChicagosPizza.com, where you can find all of the locations, order information, whether it be dine-in, whether it be carry-out, whether it be delivery. But we have a gift card for you. We will do it by giving it away to what number caller would you like to do, Eddie?
Caller 3, because it's a $30 gift card.
Caller number 3 at 239-1070. Then dinner's going to be on us. Lunch maybe as well, whatever it might be from Chicago's
You can
Pizza.
get 2 lunches, Jake, right?
That's right. You would get 2 and still have $4 to spare. Thank you so much. Because the lunch buffet, just $13, all included with tax and a beverage. You got to love it. So you can use it more than once for the gift card. It's a Friday. It is the bottom of the 2 o'clock hour. You know what that means. It is time for a Franciscan Health Feel Good, Good for the Heart Friday. And I love doing this because not only do I like featuring some of the great stories that we see around central Indiana of athletes that overcome overcome some sort of odds, or do their school proud, do their parents proud, whatever it might be. But it comes in a variety of different forms and fashion in which we highlight different aspects of sports for this, and in doing so, reminding everybody about the importance of their cardiovascular heart health. You have heard from some of the doctors from Franciscan who have joined to talk about different things like AFib, to talk about the importance of some of the cholesterol medications that can help you with your heart, and making sure that heart health is at the top of your game and on the top of your mind. It is so important. It can begin with a very, very simple $49 heart scan. And I know that a lot of people hear that and they think to themselves, I don't know, like the scan of something on the interior of my body sounds intimidating. I get it. It's not invasive. It is very easy. Very easy. It does not take long to do. Just $49. You can self-refer for a heart scan. And you're getting it from Franciscan, who not once but twice has been named as #1 in the entire state of Indiana for their cardiac care, for their cardiovascular care by different organizations. And in addition to that, they want to make sure that with every heart patient, they're treating you not like just a number, not just a statistic, but rather an individual and, you know, a friend, really part of the Franciscan family, which is what you get. And it begins with that $49 heart scan to just find out exactly your score in terms of your cardiovascular health, which then comes with a heart health risk assessment. So you get a printout of exactly where you are in terms of your cardiovascular care and getting on the right page. Think about this. I mean, I just mentioned the Brickyard 400. You know, think of it in these terms. If you were going to go into the Brickyard 400 or the Indianapolis 500, IndyCar in Toronto this weekend, you would not, as a race car driver, want to be getting into a car that the engine has a couple of pistons misfiring. You know, you want to make sure that everything's running in full tune, and that's the most important thing. Your heart is your engine. Basically, you want to make sure it's running at full strength. For this installment of our Franciscan Health Feel Good, Good for the Heart Friday, I simply want to go back to what I mentioned earlier in talking about what we did last night. And I was very fortunate and honored to be a part of it. And that was the Heart and Hustle Awards that took place at the Indiana Convention Center last night in the Wabash Ballroom at the Indiana Convention Center. With the WNBA All-Star Game being here in Indianapolis, it was a special evening in recognizing the importance and significance of females in athletics. And there were 3 that were prominently featured last night. Lara Overton was there on behalf of the Irsay daughters for the Indianapolis Colts, accepting an award on their behalf. But Lara did an outstanding job in talking about the importance of just the example for females to be involved in sports and seeing exactly, you know, everything that goes into getting examples for young girls. And we see now the number of young girls that are quitting playing sports by the age of 14 at a higher frequency than boys. A lot of that is because they just don't have the blueprint, if you will, and the role models before them. And that's where people like Julie Rolash come into play, who is the commissioner for the Horizon League. And, of course, in that capacity is working with both men's and women's sports, but setting an example of sports leadership from the female standpoint. And then Katie Douglas, who was a great basketball player, 14 years in the WNBA, played overseas as well, played at Perry Meridian, won a national championship at Purdue, and was given a proclamation from Congress yesterday about her contributions to Indiana sports and as a Hoosier, not only in athletics, but also now in the business world, in fitness, and also with Franciscan, their commitment towards wellness for women. But Katie Douglas last night during a panel that was held by our colleague Karen Vaughn in talking to those 3 women about the importance of women in athletics and their place in that growing prominence of trying to make Indianapolis the women's sports capital of the United States. Katie Douglas talked about the importance for young girls of just setting that path that makes it easier for young girls to walk.
We bring her because we want her to see how powerful women are in sports. We bring her, I've got family members, we bring her to the Cousins games. We're constantly bringing our family and my daughter and letting her see what sports can do in your life and how powerful women can be. So I challenge each of you to look in your life, like Laura said, and not just talk about it, but be about it. Come to the games. We need that support in order to make Indy the sports capital that I think it should be.
She was talking about bringing her young daughter, by the way, I should have mentioned, to Fever games, and the fact that they see her up on the video board, her young daughter does, but doesn't necessarily grasp yet what mom's contribution was, but she wants her to be exposed to the ability for women to accomplish in sport, which is what the WNBA All-Star Weekend will also celebrate. So to Julie Rolash, to Katie Douglas, and also to Kaylin Irsay, Casey Irsay, Carly Irsay Gordon, Kaylin Irsay Jackson, and Casey Irsay Foyt now. Congratulations to all, and thank you for their path that they have cleared now for young girls here in Central Indiana into Franciscan Health for showcasing and highlighting them last night. We will come back. We have tickets to give away for the Query Challenge, the TBT that's going to be taking place at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Everything getting underway, as a matter of fact, tonight. But Butler alma mater team, Indiana alma mater team, others as well will give away tickets. This is going to be going on for a number of days at Hinkle. I'll have a trivia question. You answer it correctly, you're on your way. We'll do it next. I'm telling you, Eddie. I'm going to predict it right now. Tonight at 11:17 p.m., I'm going to get a text. Jake, that song is stuck in my head. Blame Eddie. See, you keep playing it, I think, deep down, and I like the song, I do, but I think you kind of like it.
I mean, I've always liked the song. It's not like I wasn't familiar with this song.
It isn't. It does remind me of the summer that it came out. I mean, that's why I like it, because it was a fun summer, you know?
Oh, really? Why was it a fun summer, Jake?
I just think it was the fact that, the age I was at the time. I mean, we were all...
You'd have been what?
22, 23. It was like the last go-round of when we were all kind of still living at home, like home from college and hanging out. We all had summer jobs and then go out and do whatever, and it was fun. Kind of the last hurrah for our gang, I guess. But the song itself, once it gets in your head, there's no leaving it. Yeah, okay. See? Okay. So we have the Query Challenge, tickets to give away to the TBT. This is taking place at Hinkle Fieldhouse, Indiana's alum team, Butler's alumni team, among others. 239-1070 is the telephone number. 239-1070. We call it the Query Challenge because I will present a trivia question, and if you get it right, you are on your way. But we need callers to line up and participate in said adventure at 239-1070. We will begin with who, Eddie?
Dan.
Dan, you are on the air. How are you, Dan?
I'm doing great. I could walk 500 miles.
Let's go.
Here you go. That song's going to be stuck in your head, is it not, Dan?
Oh, I know it, Eddie.
Now, Dan, have you called the program before, Dan? Have we talked before?
No, we have not. I listen to you every day.
Okay, so let me ask you something. Is your radio broken? Is that why you're listening every day? I appreciate the charity.
You've got a unique approach.
Now, here's the thing, Dan. Unique is usually a kind way of saying you're an odd dude. Is that what you're saying?
Kind of, but it's entertainingly odd.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Dan, if you don't mind me asking, how old a fella are you?
I'm 63.
63-year-old Dan, okay. That tells me on my quick math you would have been a graduate in high school somewhere around 79 or 80. Is that right?
1980.
1980, okay. And that was from what high school?
Owen Valley.
Owen Valley. All right. The Graves brothers played at Owen Valley, did they not?
I'm not real familiar with them.
After you. Owen Valley's down there.
After me. Oh, yes, after me. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so here's my question for you. 1980, of course, the Final Four took place in Indianapolis for the first time. That featured Louisville, that featured Purdue, that featured Iowa, and that featured UCLA, okay? But Butler is going to be in the TBT, and Butler has been to two Final Fours, of course, 2010 and 2011. In 2010, they defeated a Big 12 school in the regional finals. And in 2011, they beat an SEC school in the regional finals to get to their two respective Final Fours. Can you tell me either school, Dan?
Oh.
Let me ask you this.
The games.
Let me ask you this, Dan. Did you attend college as well?
Yep.
Okay, where'd you go to college?
University of Evansville.
Oh, the Purple Aces.
Yes, sir.
So you would have graduated from Evansville in 84, is that right?
It was 85.
Okay, so you were there. Curtis
senior.
Jackson, Marty Simmons were there. My sister was a freshman the year that you were there, or the year you were graduating. I will tell you that the Big 12 school that Butler defeated in the regional finals in 2010 also have purple in their school colors. They're not necessarily known as a basketball school nor a football school, but they've had some decent football teams over the years.
Would that be Kansas State?
Kansas State is correct, Dan. Congratulations, you are on your way. I appreciate you listening to the program, Dan, and for also calling me unique. I appreciate that.
You know what, Jake? He said he graduated from college in 85. That means the Proclaimers were a big hit for him in college.
What's that?
The Proclaimers.
No, the Proclaimers were 95.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said 84.
No, 94, 94, 95.
Did you say 84 for some reason earlier in the show, and that's why it was stuck in my head?
No. See, the Proclaimers are stuck in your head, Eddie, because I'm telling you, once you play them, they never leave, right? That much we know. Once you start playing them, they never leave your head. That's the problem with the Proclaimers. John is up next. Do we know where JMV is next?
He's at O'Reilly's Irish Pub.
Oh, it's a great place, man.
Until 6:30.
Great place. All right, so John's there. Next week, we will be talking aplenty about the Colts because training camp getting underway.
You'll be there Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
So we will be there
I
next
think.
week for a variety of broadcasts, lining up player interviews and giving you covered from all angles. WNBA All-Star Weekend. Again, if you're just joining us, Lexi Hull will now be in for Caitlin Clark tonight in the three-point shootout. Then Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell tomorrow for the WNBA All-Star Game. Summer celebration for Indiana Black Expo as well. So a lot going on in downtown Indianapolis in whatever variety you are choosing to celebrate and enjoy it in Indianapolis. Certainly be safe and have fun with it. I appreciate you listening. John's up next.
Have a good weekend,
Thank you
Jake.
for listening. You too, Eddie, to Query and Company.